Now, nearly a decade ago, Zelda Perkins became the first woman to break a non-disclosure agreement to speak out against abuse by Harvey Weinstein. The former assistant to the disgraced film producer has successfully campaigned for reforms in the UK to stop employers misusing NDAs and is now working to ensure the legislation is impossible to sidestep.
Well, Zelda Perkins joins us now. It's great to have you. I remember when we last spoke, and very forceful and moving, and you've done some incredible work, you know, in this area. Where are we at right now? What do you make of what the government's up to?
Well, we're actually at the most nerve-wracking part. And obviously, as a campaigner, this is all stuff that I've learned. But basically, the primary legislation has gone through. So the government has made huge strides and said that no clause in an agreement can stop an employee speaking up about harassment or discrimination that they've witnessed or suffered, or how their employee has responded. However, the real crux of the matter is that within that legislation, there is going to be room for victims to ask for confidentiality if they want it. Now, this is where things get really tricky, because what could happen at this point is if people don't engage now with the consultation, the public consultation which the government have launched today, there is a possibility that we will end up rubber stamping the ability for employers to still coerce employees into signing an NDA by saying, oh, well, you've asked to have an NDA. So it's really important that people who've had experience of being silenced or coerced at work really speak up now. This is the moment where people who have been silenced can speak up, can engage directly with the government and shape the law. And there's a possibility here to make the law globally leading, or there's a possibility for the law to fall short and undermine what it's trying to do. Because there's obviously a lot of people with skin in the game, big employers, corporates, lawyers, who will respond to this consultation saying that, employers still need the right to ask for confidentiality.
How long is the consultation? I mean, are you ultimately very optimistic and supportive of the government for how far this has gotten?
Yes.
All the necessary steps have been taken, there's just a few more to take.
So the consultation will be 12 weeks. Again, I won't ever believe it's done till it's actually, the policy's been written and it has been implemented. And the government has to listen to what happens in the consultation. But the government have been incredibly collaborative with myself and other people, working in this area, and I really believe that they are trying to do the right thing. And this is going to be the government showing that they listen to the people that matter and they bring some equality into bargaining and equality and help for victims, and don't continue to listen to the people in power to keep that status quo. The other thing that's really important that they're consulting on is if this should be broadened to cover self-employed and freelance workers. That's also hugely important. That's a huge percentage of the British workforce who currently don't have any protections. So if you're an actor, and obviously I come from the creative industries, if you're an actor or a crew member, you tend to be freelance. So you wouldn't be protected by this law unless the government broaden this to freelance and self-employed workers.
That does feel like quite big.
That's huge. So again, it's another reason for people to really engage with this consultation. And I think, to me, it's really exciting, having gone on this journey as a campaigner, to see that as a member of the public, you do have power to shape the law, but you have to engage. And this is a moment where you can engage and you can get the rights that you need heard by the government.
I mean, you obviously, and talk about this as much or as little as you want, but you've had experience of people trying to silence you, right?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I was silenced by an incredibly egregious non-disclosure agreement back in 2017, when not in 2017, God, in 20 years ago, I broke it in 2017. Yes, when I tried to report the fact that Harvey Weinstein had sexually assaulted my assistant. It was less Harvey's behaviour, more the way that the law dealt with that. That was the problem for me, because currently the system enables those in power to behave how they choose. And the victims are the ones who are silenced, who lose their jobs, who can't then get new jobs because they can't speak about what's happened to them. And this actually has a really big effect on the economy, because you're usually losing people who are the people who want to speak up and who want to make the environment better.
or people who want to help the victims. This is the
Exactly.
thing, yeah.
I'm really just interested in pick up on what you said on freelance, because are people bound by silence automatically? Or surely you've had to have signed something that included a clause you weren't aware of in order to be bound by them?
Yes, you have to have signed something that says that you can't speak about what's happened. A lot of unscrupulous employers will have a kind of pre-dispute confidentiality clause within a contract, particularly those who work in media. I suggest you look at your contracts very carefully.
But presumably there is confidentiality in ours, like we can't disclose, stuff we get emailed about.
That's totally legitimate and fair enough. This is only dealing with misconduct and harm, so discrimination or harassment, which is not what confidentiality is for. It's also not... This isn't meant to stop people from settling. There are always going to be disputes at work, and we want victims to have the ability to settle, which is their right. But what shouldn't happen is that payment, which is a legitimate payment, is not linked to them not speaking, which means that employers and lawyers use that as a form of blackmail. They say you'll get a bigger settlement if you don't speak about it. If we break that link, it will make settlement faster, and it'll mean that people will... It's not going to make a difference to the amount of payment they get, actually, and we've seen that from the states in the US, because there are over 27 states that have legislated against the use of NDAs, and that's actually helped settlements move faster and actually rise by about 10%.
Zelda, thanks so much. Really interesting.
Yeah, always good to have you on. Thank you.